Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at. I'm here with Cornelia. My name is Eileen. I cover all things digital marketing at Conscious Connections Consultancy. But today we wanted to just sit down and share a little bit more about what is Conscious Connections Consultancy, as well as what Cornelia does over at this company. So I'll hand it over to Cornelia. Why don't you share a little bit more with everyone about, how did you start Conscious Connections Consultancy and just a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, hi Eileen. Hi everyone. So Eileen and I had the idea, as you were asking me a lot of questions when you started with working for me, and we thought, why do we not just turn this into a little series to share with everyone, because it gives me a good insight into what kind of questions someone may have, right?
Yeah.
So I started Conscious Connections Consultancy. Or actually, well, it hasn't been called Conscious Connections Consultancy for a very long time. It's kind of the product of the process that I've been going through. And I really started this kind of work in 2005 when I was pregnant with my first child, and started working properly as the then called conscious parenting training in 2008, when my second child was born. And it was really somebody who kind of convinced me to do what I do. I didn't intend to do it at all. I was originally a hypnotherapist, and my doula for my second child was having a conversation with me. I was a bit hooked and obsessed with a topic at the time, which was the neurobiological developments of newborns and infants, and the impact that the parenting had, because that was at the time very new knowledge. There was a psychologist in London who wrote a book, The Science of Parenting, and it's Margot Sunderland. And I was so fascinated by the book. So it really got me into this topic. And I was talking to Di Bustamante, the doula that was helping me with my birth. And she said, "Oh, you have to do this. You have to do a parenting class for me." And I was saying, "What? I have very young children. I know nothing about parenting. I can't do a parenting class for you." So she was bugging me for a year, telling me like, "No, but nobody knows this. Everybody's doing sleep training and all of these funny things. And you have to share why they shouldn't do it." And after a year, I said, "Okay, I do a parenting class for you." Basically, this is how conscious parenting training developed. And at the time, there was no talk about Dr. Shafali, the conscious parenting guru nowadays. And I thought I had a very innovative name, calling it conscious parenting. So it was quite funny when I realized it was already a movement in the US. But this is how it started. And then, so I was only a hypnotherapist then, and I had basically done all this research, kind of reading on the topic of neurobiological development. And I included knowledge on food and sleep and all of the things that I basically got a bit obsessed about when I had my own children. The training looked very different at the time. So I then realized that a lot of people couldn't put into practice what I was teaching them. So I actually did a coaching degree. I did a really substantial coaching degree with the International Coaching Academy in the US. It was a 2-year program, really intense, and I loved it. It was really, really nice. That really helped me to push my work forward, because the hypnotherapy approach is very subconscious and all of that, and the coaching is very much practical. So I kind of combined these two sides of your experience together. And then I realized, somehow it's often the couples that have an issue. Even if one wants to integrate what they know now, then they can't communicate properly with each other. And I had couples fighting in my sessions, and I thought I didn't really know how to navigate that. So I did a couples therapy training as well. So I took a degree of the Couples Therapy Institute, also in the US, which was also an amazing experience, because it got me into attachment and attachment trauma and all of that, because it's a very developmental approach, meaning that the interaction within a couple is very much based on how we learn to attach to people. And from there, so that actually got me into a lot of trauma work. So nowadays I do EMDR, which is a trauma release process, and TRE, which is a physical trauma release exercise thing. So it got into a very holistic approach to family, self, and from that I had a lot of clients who actually went into talking about leadership situations with me, because they realized that leadership or work in general has a lot to do with how you connect to yourself and how you put yourself and your strength into the world and into the workplace, and that, right? And I've also done a lot of corporate work. So what now is Conscious Connections Consultancy, it was a real development over the last, 17 years.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's really good to hear just kind of all these concepts and approaches and practices are really applicable to, any individuals and their situations, whether their family or at work or just, with a partner. And so it's really amazing to just kind of see how far you've come, and also, the people that you have helped. For me, even though I'm just kind of on the forefront, I definitely learned a lot and picked things up here and there and learned them myself. And in my kind of day-to-day working with people and my family too. So yeah, thanks for sharing, a little background about yourself and, how you gave birth to kind of Conscious Connections Consultancy and where you're at today. So, just one more question before we just kind of wrap it up, because we're trying to keep this, short, and, we'll definitely do more of this later on. So to touch on, multiple things. So what is your therapeutic approach? How do you currently, apply it to your work with the families or, other individuals that you work with? What's something that, really sticks out to you presently in your work?
Yeah. So for me, the most important bit is to combine all the different skill sets that I have. So it's not just, I'm originally a hypnotherapist, so I work hypnotherapeutically, but I'm also a coach, so it's also very practical. And for me, as a client myself to psychotherapists, I was always super frustrated that I didn't really understand what they were doing. So I went to sessions and then thought, and now what? So I'm trying to kind of bridge that gap that I felt myself to inform people, what is it actually that's going on? What are we actually doing? And help people to understand what the process is. I think that's one of the biggest differences to the work that I do. So I'm trying to empower by knowledge. I'm really helping people to understand what is actually the change in the brain that we're trying to achieve. How are we trying to actually change the body and the connection between brain and body? I mean, I think a lot of people know that feeling of rationally, you know something, but it kind of doesn't reach your emotion. So yeah. I'm trying to help them to understand how can we actually bridge that gap. It's also very attachment based. So sometimes I have clients who say, oh, do we really always have to go back to childhood? And yeah, we do, because this is where the program starts. And that's not in a psychoanalytical way that we have to rub ourselves in the problem again and again and again. It's more about understanding what's the root cause. So we can actually start from there to then really transport different behavior into the future and shift from a passive consuming of old programs into an active creation of what you actually want in life. And the past is full of conditioning. If you look into parenting and the way we are raised, there's so much conditioning, so much stuff that isn't really you, because most of our parents actually didn't know how to allow us to blossom properly. So there's so much conditioning that we have to get rid of because it just doesn't fit who we are. And then go into active creation. So this is how hypnotherapy and the subconscious work bundles up with information and knowledge, and then actually the approach of active creation coaching.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of kind of depth to kind of cover, just because, everyone has all these different experiences from when they're young. So like you said, really tackling the root cause of it and how it started is important to just kind of break it down and be able to solve a specific problem or an issue, or just be able to give more of a reasoning behind, why this is what it is now,
Yeah.
and what we can do to really change that internally and just how we think in general.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really amazing to just kind of how you are, changing the world of just, being able to, really understand the mind and, how our actions and so on and so forth. But yeah, this question just kind of brings to the end of our little episode. We
Yeah.
would love to kind of do 2 or 3 more later on and be able to go in depth into the work and also, situations, and obviously some of the experiences that, you guys as who are in the community to just kind of follow through and learn from, and hopefully be able to ask questions and interact with us more often, so we can, just connect with, you guys or everyone in a much deeper level. So yeah, just
Yeah.
stay tuned for the next episode. We'll definitely come back on very soon. But if you enjoyed this little episode, feel free to comment or reach out to us and let us know you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.